Hey everyone, I'm recording an intro in the office here just because the first intro was way too long, so I'm trying to shorten it. In this video I go through the process of separating out different qualities of compost from a batch of municipal compost. What I noticed is that basically any batch of municipal compost, there's some finer stuff, there's some mid-grade stuff, there's some really coarse stuff, and I thought, I wonder if I could separate that out and have some, different qualities of compost that I could use for different things around the farm. And it turned out pretty well, so check it out. So this is the compost here. It's pretty dry. Even when I got it as a fresh load, it was still pretty dry. And it's quite hydrophobic. It's been very hard to get it hydrated, and it's also hard to keep it hydrated. It's got lots of chunks, lots of wood that's not broken down, and little bits of plastic debris and things like that. So it's pretty much what you'd expect from municipal compost. So this is the trommel. This is homemade. I designed this and built it myself. Got this little 1/2 horsepower motor on here. It's a 3-phase motor, and I've got a 3-phase converter. So this takes 110 volt single phase and outputs 220 volt three phase. And got my little screen here. It's made out of bike rims with a 1/4 inch hardware cloth mesh. A little board here to keep things from flinging out the side. The compost drops down into the buckets that you see down below. If you want to see a full build for this trommel, I did a series. It was actually my very first series on YouTube, build series, where I showed this step by step. And so if you're interested in putting one of these together of your own, you can check out that series of videos. Turned out pretty good, and it's held up over the years. It's held up beautifully. First things first, these black bins that you're seeing down here, those are 12-gallon bins. They're not quite full, so I'm going to say that each has about 10 gallons worth of sifted compost. And so put those together, and that's probably a little over 20 gallons of sifted compost. Here, the excess that has been filtered out, I'm going to say that amounts to about 4 gallons. Maybe 5 gallons. I could see a 5-gallon bucket being filled with that amount of compost. So 4 or 5 gallons. So this amounts to about 20% by volume that's been sifted out. Let's take a look at the quality of what was sifted out. And yeah, my goodness, look at that. Tons of sticks and chunks and everything. This is utterly, that would just not work for a potting mix or for say an air prune bed or what have you. You'd want something a good amount finer than this. You're not going to start lettuce seeds, and you're not going to start mulberry seeds in this type of growing medium. So I think it's definitely worth it to get this stuff out. And this is much, much finer. Oh my goodness. Way finer than it was before. The bulk density is significantly higher. It just feels a lot heavier. Each handful feels significantly heavier than it used to. So definitely a higher bulk density. I'm not sure about the hydrophobic qualities. I'm sure it's even more hydrophobic now than it was before. So that's something I'm going to have to deal with. Even though it's only 1/4 of an inch trommel, it just got it so much finer than it was before. And this is the before. So that's before. You can see all that chunky stuff mixed in there. So that versus this, and it's pretty much just night and day. So I'll still use this. I'll use this as a mulch, and I'll use it as worm bedding. I'm certainly happy to have the carbon brought onto the property. This is the 1/8" screen that we have. It's done by hand. It's not motorized. And so we just have this 55-gallon barrel. And then I used some pop rivets to put on, I cut out some windows here in that 55-gallon barrel. I used pop rivets to attach that 1/8" screen to it. And then the barrel is attached to this axle. And then I welded on some rebar that would form spokes, and then those spokes come out the side of the trommel to keep it in place. It's functional. It works. It has its flaws as well, and that's fine. I still see us as being at the beginning stages of our operations, so we still have lots of improvements that we're going to be making to this. But let's go ahead and put some of this municipal compost through this 1/8" screen, and we'll see what we get in the end. The trommel, we put it on this IBC, and I've got this little nut here that's been welded onto this rebar. That holds one end of the axle, and then the other end of the axle is held up by the sides of the IBC. And then as we screen, the castings, like we were doing before, or in this case, the municipal compost, will filter down and land in this IBC, and we'll scoop it out when we're done. So that's how it sits on there. So it's just got those two pieces of rebar that form sort of a cradle. And then got this large rebar handle that I made that you can use to turn it. This rebar cradle that it sits on. I've got some nuts that I ground out the threads to where this is just a smooth inside here. And then I welded that nut onto this rebar. So this spins freely in that nut, and then that keeps it mounted to that little cradle of rebar that I have. This is the 1/4" screen. This is the original compost. And this is after the 1/8" screen. So it's almost sand-like at this point. Quite a bit different. Much higher bulk density, much less compressible. It's heavier, it feels heavier. It's quite dusty. It is, I believe it's going to be quite hydrophobic. So there you go, that's my experience trommeling municipal compost. Of course, every municipality is going to be different. Some might be higher grade compost, others might be lower grade compost. But now at least you've seen it, and you have some idea of what you're going to get if you go from just the straight municipal compost that you purchase, trommel it down using a 1/4" screen. It might look something similar to what I have. Trommel that down again using an 1/8" screen. It'll become even finer, and you can kind of, you've seen the results from my experiment. You can kind of picture what it might be like if you did an experiment of your own. And we're thinking about using that for a seed starting mix, for a raised bed, for an air prune bed, any of the wonderful things that we use compost for. Give you an example of the different grades of compost that are kind of living inside that one batch of municipal compost. So thanks so much for watching, and good luck on your projects.